Jenner injected her pus into James. He repeated the process over 9 days, gradually increasing the amount of pus he put into the boy. He then injected James with pus from Blossom the cow. James became ill, unsurprisingly, but after a few days made a full recovery with no side effects. Jenner thought he had made a brilliant discovery. But had he? For starters, it was the century of famine, and there was certainly one going on at that time. What do you think most milkmaids were living on for their sustenance? Mother's milk, especially from cows, is loaded in potassium chloride and potassium phosphate, and even the perfect amount of sulfur to be converted into potassium sulfate. Even if the mother is deficient herself, nature will allocate the nutrients to her milk to ensure the survival of her children and her species. Famine-starving milkmaids living off potassium-rich cow milk all day would obviously therefore not express smallpox from potassium deficiency. Some of the milkmaids did, however, express pox on their hands and palms. This is what is now known as shedding. The skin is a porous organ, and if you are touching poisonous, toxin-ridden blisters on cow teat all day, you are absolutely going to absorb those same poisons into your hands. It is the same reason inoculation was performed, and the same reason you are told to wash your hands after wiping your ass or handling poisonous chemicals or rotten food.
My question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Perry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
I don't have to tell you guys the obvious. Even though in America we are considered so cutting edge, our health sucks. Our children are especially sick, allergic, asthmatic, anxious, autistic, hyperactive, and learning disabled. I mean, American children, 43% of them at least, probably more, suffer from at least one of 20 chronic illnesses. When I was little, people didn't carry EpiPens to school. Nobody had ADD, and autism was not even a thing. Yet today, it is everywhere, and doctors can't explain it. So why this new normal of sick kids? An unexplainable chronic illness in our people everywhere. I will show you with evidence how these issues can be simply explained with exposure to EMF fields. And for those of you right now who may be dealing with insomnia, fatigue, ringing in the ears, dizziness, headaches, nausea, heart palpitations, even nosebleeds, an inability to conceive, all these things are already directly attributable to short-term doses of RF. So even emotional and psychological disturbances like depression, anxiety, even cutting rampant in our young. These are all symptoms that are proven to be impacted, if not caused, by these RF fields. This is huge. It's not my opinion. It's not even hidden, but you do have to dig through a lot of sponsored science, and that is exactly what we will be doing today.
Jenner was no doubt a brilliant country doctor for his time, but he was no Columbo and definitely not a scientist, just like our friend Kill Bill. Jenner had no scientific control group or gold standard, and he miserably failed all of Koch's postulates, failing to notice that not all milkmaids exposed to cowpox were immune, or that it was their hands and not bodies that had pox, and that many of the farmers and families exposed to the same cows every day for feed and other reasons still had the pox themselves. And this is the scientific basis for the reason you're locked in your house and social distancing.
Poland,
Deutschland,
Northern Ireland,
Sweden,
Scotland, Afghanistan,
Bulgaria,
Portugal,
Slovensko,
Ireland.
I do not consent. I do not consent to 5G.
Long ago, they gave us radio, and we could sit in our homes and enjoy stories, music, and guidance from political leaders. Then they gave us television, and we could comfortably sit and enjoy entertainment and messages for hours on end. Then they gave us the mobile phone, and we could be in touch from anywhere, anytime, with anyone, even when we have little reason to do so. They saw that we would adopt a vast array of wireless electronic gadgets that gave us convenience, diversion, entertainment, connection. So they created more and more wireless technologies, systems, networks, gadgets, and consumer products. And we quickly and gladly adopted those technologies, those toys, those tools. They did not tell us that every one of those technologies put us in a thicker and thicker soup of toxic radiation and electric fields. They did not tell us those fields break and alter our DNA, cause a host of new diseases: cancer, heart disease, dementia, stroke, diabetes, birth defects. When they created that thing called 5G, with more radiation pollution than ever before, they showed us that they are not willing to do anything to protect us. We know that something must change.
Why is the media and their slated scientists, talking heads, always giving us conflicting information on this topic? Why are they saying it's probably safe, and who has something to gain by leading us astray? Well, Jerry Phillips used to work conducting research for Motorola. His perspective on this is very insightful.
The radio frequency radiation work that we did was supported by Motorola. The relationship was really very cordial and very stress-free, but only up until we started generating data. These folks were very, very upset and began to talk about how are they going to handle this, what sort of spin can we put on this, what can we expect from this. Motorola began to exert more and more control over the work, telling us what to do, telling us how to write abstracts, what to say in the abstracts, what to say in the papers. This was unacceptable. I had completed our study of DNA damage, and I submitted the final report to Motorola, and they simply weren't willing to accept my interpretation of my study, my knowledge of science, and tried to urge me not to publish the study.
5G-utbyggnaden leder till en massiv ökning av skadlig mikrovågsstrålning som redan före utbyggnaden gör människor sjuka i stor omfattning. Ingen forskning visar att 5G är säkert.
No one has asked us any questions whether we agree with 5G and small cells everywhere, and no one has warned us on negative effects.
They're implementing now the 5G system, which will be the infrastructure for the Internet of Things, which basically means that we will have much more radiation in our environment, and we won't be able to escape it.
We do not consent to the Internet of Things being imposed worldwide without consultation.
We do not consent to the Internet of Things, as it will massively increase energy consumption, and this is not green.
C'est une technique énergivore. C'est un gâchis d'énergie qui n'est pas justifié.
We do not consent to have to flee our homes and leave our churches and our schools and our friends and our loved ones and our families because we can no longer live in our homes due to the constant radiation from the small cell facilities for 5G.
10 years ago, I got sick, and I found out after some time that it was because I couldn't be around wireless technology. I was a teacher, so I gave up my job, and I had to move from the place where I lived. Now I live here in the nature, and I hope I will be able to stay here, but I'm not sure. If 5G is a reality, nobody is sure anymore.
This is coming to you from London, and we do not consent to being used as guinea pigs.
The 5G technology comes with a serious health hazard, and therefore I don't give my consent for its deployment in this country.
I'd like to live in a world where pollinating insect populations are strong and healthy. Pollinating insects account for a vast majority of the food we eat. And with every successive generation of wireless technology, 5G millimeter waves being the absolute worst of them all, their populations have absolutely plummeted.
We do not consent to being human guinea pigs.
We do not consent to being experimented upon.
We do not consent to littering the stratosphere with tens of thousands of satellites.
We do not agree with the idea of spreading radiation all over Earth and sky.
Industry and individuals like Elon Musk do not have the right to saturate the Earth with these frequencies.
The birds do not consent. The insects do not consent. The trees do not consent. The rivers do not consent. I do not consent.
England,
the Netherlands,
UK,
India,
Bristol,
Canada, and we do not consent.
We do not consent.
This is Dr. George Carlo. He was the chief scientist hired to oversee studies investigating the safety of cell phones and their possible relationship to creating brain tumors.
There are no studies that have been done on people who use mobile phones that provide conclusive evidence of safety.
His previous work as an epidemiologist could be considered shady when you consider that he worked for companies like Dow Chemical in their days of the Agent Orange debacle. Perhaps that past got him in the door with big telecom, but when he instead started revealing cancer risks, his funding was pulled and his house was apparently burned down. Surely a coincidence.
You have studies that show problems or potential problems and studies that are inconclusive. Now, the industry spins the science as though these studies are evidence of safety. It is scientific fraud.
Controversy is frequent when the scientists recognize serious effects on health and on the environment that cause high economic losses. Så er det ofte omstridt, hvad sandheden egentlig er, selvom forskningen taler sit tydelige sprog. Tusind tak for jeres opmærksomhed.
The Earth has a voice as well, and it deserves to be heard. The consequences of 5G will be enormous. 5G has no place on this planet.
Je refuse que le rayonnement de la 5G nous soit imposé à tous et en continu, sans possibilité de l'arrêter.
We need responsible action, and above all, we need true ecology.
I second that.
We do not consent to the compulsory exposure to EMF, and we condemn the installation of 5G antennas during lockdown.
There is no escape from 5G radiation, and it endangers our children and all living beings. It's unsafe and untested technology.
Não autoriza a instalação de 5G aqui em Portugal.
Stop 5G Ireland. There has been no public consent or impact assessment.